big hello and a very warm welcome to Modi 365, a brand equity special with me, Sonali Krishna. Now, we all know that Prime Minister Modi has completed 1 year in office. So we at Brand Equity decided to delve deep and take a look at this very dynamic brand from a 360-degree angle. The debate on this special show is a pertinent one. The question being, a year after Narendra Modi came into power, has brand Modi achieved a new high or has the halo effect worn off? And to answer just that, I'm joined today on the show by four very eminent personalities. Shiv Visvanathan, the renowned social scientist; Santosh Desai, the social commentator; Swaminathan Aiyar, consulting editor ET Now, who's joining us from Washington; and Piyush Pandey, executive chairman and creative director of Ogilvy for India and South Asia, who's joining us from London. Thank you so much for joining us, gentlemen.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
First question being, do you think Narendra Modi as a brand has been diluted or been enhanced 365 days later?
Well, if you were to look at it in relative terms, I guess you would have to say that it has diluted. I mean, there was a sense of expectation and this almost a kind of a feeling of a coronation of a new age that accompanied his ascension to to power, and this sense that something vital and new would happen. There was trepidation as well as a lot of hope. I think primarily a lot of hope, and I think in 12 months on, I think what the dominant feeling is that while hope has not been lost, but it has dimmed.
No, I think it has become much more complex. There's an ambiguity to it. Remember, to a certain extent, people are ready to give tremendous leeway to Modi. There is very little dissent. There is very little marginality. Marginality has been silenced. Given this, you got to understand that brand Modi works within India today. Everyone has put their hopes on him. The corporations, the party, the middle class, the Hindutva group. You got to understand this. There is no dilution at that level. Modi is here to stay. Modi is the message. And unlike others who say it has been diluted, it's not.
Piyush, if I could bring you in now. You heard Shiv. He says the brand has become more complex. Santosh Desai says the brand has suffered. What's your view?
I think I disagree with both Mr. Viswanathan and Santosh, because I don't think they are cricketers and I'm a cricketer. And a government that's supposed to work for 5 years is like playing a 5-day match. There are certain things that you have to set into order so that you can play faster later on. You don't have to lose wickets. And I don't think he has lost a wicket.
Right. Swami, I've left you for the last. If you could come in and give us your perspective on really, brand Modi dilution or enhancement.
I would first of all say that there is no one such thing called brand Modi. There is a certain class of liberal Indians, which might include a certain number of Muslims, for whom brand Modi means devil, killer. There is another brand Modi, which can be Modi the actor, activist, the Modi who does things. There can be another brand Modi of the man who promotes Hindu nationalism. There can be another one who's Modi the aggressive patriot who will defend our borders. Each one of these is actually a different brand. The rhetoric to back it, the perceptions on all these are different. Now, when you talk about 1 year of Modi as Prime Minister, now Modi has been on the scene for quite some time. I said Modi the devil is a brand that has been around for 13, 14 years. His reputation as a doer has been for more than 10 years. I mean, after all the work he did. So these brands have been with us for some time. Now, okay, let's come to brand Modi just as Prime Minister. There is no question that Modi generated a kind of electoral wave of the kind we have not seen for decades. And when I went through the villages of Bihar and Eastern UP during the election campaign, I found these villagers believing that Modi is going to give us jobs, Modi is going to give us prosperity. I scratched my head. I said, they're expecting too much. I don't know how Modi sold them this particular dream. But he did sell them the dream that I am the man who's going to give you all jobs and make you all prosper. Now, that particular brand Modi, which helped win the election, is in some trouble. It's in some trouble because the expectations raised were unrealistically high. So I mean, if you had another poll today, I doubt very much whether Modi would win as many votes or as many seats as he won at that time. So there is some tarnishing of that image. But I think that was inevitable because it was, what shall we say, it was, the expectations he raised were just too good to be true. It was a brand that could not possibly live up to all that it promised. And to that extent, the fact that it has taken some denting does not mean that it is not a saleable product, does not mean that it is a product that people are going to reject from us, but it is not as fancy a dream as it once was.
Let me come to a more pertinent question. I mean, this is the first time in India you've seen a prime minister who's made so many public appearances. Do you think the overexposure of Narendra Modi has, worked for him or against him? And if I could come to you first, Shiv, on this one.
Actually, it's helped. If you take a similar example, the example of such a charismatic figure is Fidel Castro. Even when there was a shortage of milk in Cuba, he would go on national radio and explain it to the nation. Modi is doing something similar. He is combining party, civil society, and nation together. Every speech of his is addressed to a nation and a special audience. And in consolidating constituencies, he is emphasizing the unity of the nation. Look, this is a different grammar, this is a different game. Modi couldn't have been emerged in a pre-TV generation. Modi could not have been pre-digital. This man is a new possibility only because of media and only because of a certain force of history. Comparing him and looking at him as if he's an old brand, he's not Dalda. He's an Adidas shoe. The memories, the nostalgias are very different.
I just love your analogy, Shiv. But I mean, Santosh, are you in agreement?
So I think it is beginning to become negative in the sense that, what happens is that particularly when you have a certain a kind of a sway and you have over your audience, what you don't want to do is to become ordinary and become, predictable, and where people feel that, their attention, we live in a world that is where the attention spans are low. And Narendra Modi had this ability to hold attention in a almost mesmeric way. And I think that the fact that when you overdo it and when you are present far too much and you speak on far too many subjects, then you start seeing patterns, and then you start seeing, to begin with, it's all new language. There's a new vocabulary. There's the whole idea of change and making promises is a new idea in politics in India in the way in which he kind of framed it. But when you listen to it over and over again, it becomes yet another speech. And I think, and particularly when then you start, evaluating it versus action, then the words which were glorious start being sort of measured up against action, which sometimes is not so glorious. And I think those are the kind of effects that I think any brand has. I mean, a brand is not a promise, contrary to what was said. A brand is what you do, not what you say. And I think Mr. Modi could perhaps do well to remember that.
Sure. Piyush, if I could bring you in, as a man who has created several brands and a man who continues to, be a caretaker of brands, do you think brand Modi's overexposure with the Indian public and internationally has worked against him? Do you think his brand manager should have advised him to keep his public appearances limited so as to keep his aura still alive?
I don't quite agree with that, because to me, accessibility of a prime minister is a wonderful thing, and I think we have got so unused to it in the last so many years that we find that this one is going a little over the top. I don't think so. I am right now sitting in England, and I see the way David Cameron goes around walking the streets and talking to people. I think accessibility is a good thing, rather than not being visible or not being heard or not being available to anybody.
Fair point. Coming to, Modi's image, I mean, we all know that when Modi won elections, he was perceived, one of the things that has, seemed to daunt his public image is the fact that he didn't come across as a liberal, he came across as communal, he was looked at as a Hindutva leader, the minorities were not very comfortable with that. Do you think he's been able to change that perception or at least rein in that image to a large extent?
No, no, I think the response is much more subtle. It's Machiavellian. There's a division of labor. Modi looks secular, instrumental. RSS, BJP, Bajrang Dal looks communal, majoritarian. Modi is silent about communalism while communal activities take place. Modi is silent about moral policing when it occurs. In fact, when his colleagues embarrass him with communalistic statements, he pretends they don't exist. Modi, in fact, is isolating himself from these phenomena. There's a division of labor. He will play the technocrat. He'll play the charismatic hero. These guys will be a chorus sustaining the majoritarian tendency. It's a brilliant move. A division of labor as a division of politics, as a division of symbolism, when it's actually one operative unit.
Swami, your view on the fact that if he's managed to somehow become, a leader with a democratic image as opposed to a person who is really a Hindutva leader?
There were people who feared the coming of the BJP and the coming of Modi as a kind of Holocaust against Muslims. There were others who said even if it's not a Holocaust, there is going to be dreadful communal trouble. There is going to be a lot of unease. At the end of 1 year, I would say that if you look at that liberal group, there are more people willing now to grudgingly say, okay, he's okay. Nobody's saying he's a saint. But from the point of, Mr. T.N. Menon, for instance, in the recent thing says, let's cut Modi some slack. He's one of those who was extremely anti-Modi, his newspaper, along with the newspaper. But you will find that having spat venom at Modi for so many years, from 2002 till the election, you read some of the same writers today, you will find there is much less venom. So I would say yes. It is not as though the devil has become Mother Teresa overnight, but a lot of people who were earlier deadly anti-Modi are willing to cut him some slack, are willing to say, okay, let's see how this goes. We are not entirely happy, but let's see how it goes.
Santosh, and I really want to come back to you with the point you made in your previous response, talking about that, there have been several factions, and sections of the BJP and the RSS that have made some seriously irresponsible and inappropriate statements. Do you think, while Modi has definitely been making the right sounds, do you think he's been effective as a leader in terms of being able to rein in his people? Do you think he's been able to, or he's been unsuccessful in doing so?
Well, I think there's this whole question of trying to balance, this aura of strength and the aura of reasonableness, which he simultaneously, is keen to project. And I think he doesn't want to offend a very vocal section of his support base, which, the energy of which is palpable. I think it raises the question as to whether he wants to. And I think this thing about politically wanting to keep this whole area of a kind of a Hindutva kind of an appeal alive, while administratively wanting to give a sense that there is no anxiety that the minorities need to have. This balancing act, I am not sure he's quite been able to achieve.
Swami, what do you think?
I would say without doubt he has reined them in. I think it is Eknath Desai who rather accurately, he compared the position of Modi to that of various Labour prime ministers in England. That Labour prime minister in England were often given lots of dreadful trouble by the trade unions. And yet they couldn't dissociate themselves from the trade unions because it was a Labour party. Right? So similarly, the BJP is a party which has affiliates like the VHP and the RSS. It cannot delink itself. There's no way it's going to cut itself out from those guys. But yes, those fellows will assert themselves when the BJP is in power. And yes, just as Harold Wilson or James Callaghan in England tried to assert himself to put down the unions, here Modi will try to assert himself. At the end of it all, there is no way Modi is going to dissociate himself from these people. They are part of the entire structure that has brought him to power.
True, fair point and noted. Going to the next question, which being, as a leader, one looks at Modi as somebody who is a dictator. His cabinet and his team seem to be afraid of him, seem to come across as more subservient, and Modi really comes across as a leader who is not very open to debate, dialogue and opinion sharing. While that may be a perception and may not be reality, one would not know that. Do you think that is a perception that is shared largely by the country? Do you think Modi is that kind of a leader? I'll go with you, Shiv.
Remember when Brand Modi was built in Gujarat, Modi never gave time to parliamentarians. He told all his members of parliament and his members of legislature to go to their constituencies and stay there. Modi always operated through a particular group of bureaucrats. That's his coterie. If you look at the Modi coterie, it's composed of Amit Shah, Jaitley, Rajnath Singh. It's composed of Arvind Subramaniam, Rajan, and throw in another bureaucrat or two. You've got to understand this. This is a very different kind of style. It's techno-bureaucratic. The parliament wins the election, the technocracy and the bureaucracy take over. So Modi at one level is a leader for the masses. He's a leader for his party cadre. He's not a leader for his team of politicians. He cares very little for them. He knows he can handle all of them. I mean, you just have to watch Sushma Swaraj's body language to realize that dissent will go nowhere, that Adani and everyone else are silent. The real suppression of dissent is inside the BJP, not outside. So he can still treat them, and Prakash Javadekar, Smriti Irani, they are deputy secretaries. In fact, I'm not even quite sure I'd give them that status.
That's rather hilarious. You call them deputy secretaries. Santosh, what's your view? Are you in agreement with Shiv on this one?
Yes, I think that seems quite, it's quite visible, and there are any number of, reports that seem to suggest that is so. So I do think that is true. I do think certainly that there is a distance, and if you were to look at it purely in terms of image, the fact that he is photographed alone all the time and that there is a big difference that is deliberately kind of maintained between him and everybody else. He is not the first among equals in any sense of the word. There is a very clear power distance between him and the rest of the cabinet, and he sort of works towards that.
I want to come to an event that really got national attention, really, and I'm really talking about Modi's famous or infamous suit, right, which is monogrammed, his monogram suit. Do you think, Swami, I'd like to go with you first, that was really an exercise and a wrong PR exercise, which was truly a mistake in his first year. And he tried some damage control by auctioning it, but I mean the damage was seriously done. Are you in agreement that was a mistake?
I think you're dead right. It's saying that he got to the stage of believing that he was everything because he took the BJP to heights which nobody could have dreamt of. Who could have dreamt of the BJP and allies winning 73 seats out of 80 in Uttar Pradesh? It was unimaginable. So, I mean, to some extent, I think he got carried away by his own success. But I agree that wearing that monogrammed suit was a sign of a man in love with himself. But he got the flag so heavily, he quickly auctioned that off. I think he's learned his lesson. I don't think you will be seeing very much more of that.
Shiv, I'd like to come to you now on your view on Narendra Modi's much talked about monogram suit.
The elite was embarrassed. If you sat at IIC or Gymkhana or Madras Club, they would have been embarrassed. The ordinary people actually saw him as a part of the aspiring middle class. The aspiring middle class will always make a few mistakes. So what if the chaiwala wears an inscribed suit, they'd say. So what if he's dressed badly? See, you got to understand that the nature of the class is responding to him. For the middle class, within a barber, if you're sitting in a barber saloon or a pawn shop, it's a lovely story. And in fact, it adds to the folklore of the man. He's not embarrassed. They're not embarrassed. Only a certain bunch of what I call the fashion class, the fashion literati are embarrassed.
So, I mean, do you have a contrarian view to that? There's his constant need to see himself, this constant need for adulation. I mean, he does come across as a little bit too needy, given the fact that, every time he travels abroad, the adulation he receives from the Indian diaspora, and the fact that at least the perception seems to be that he devours the attention.
There are signs of maturity and immaturity. As I said, this getting wowed by the diaspora, I think is a sign of immaturity, even though some people say there's a foreign policy aim. This business of wearing a monogrammed suit was a sign of immaturity. The too many foreign trips is a sign of immaturity. On the other hand, the signs of maturity have come that when communal and other incidents have gone, he has gone out of his way to calm tempers and saying, this is not what I am for. I am sabke saath. We must all go together. That is a sign of maturity which people had not expected of him, or certainly a number of his critics had not expected of him.
Do you think the Prime Minister's love for his own image is a cause of concern for the nation? Shiv, your view on this?
No, it worked for him. In electoral politics, this kind of a stunt works. Look at the repeat value of it. It was one of the most circulated serials. People loved it. It was like carrying a personal autograph of the Prime Minister to your home. See, what you got to understand here is, this guy looks crude. Sometimes he's almost matter of fact. He's almost literal. There is no subtlety. But in the very fact there is no subtlety, he persuades, it gives you a certain sense of masculinity, force, impact, decisiveness. So you're not looking for an old aesthetic, you're looking for a new aesthetic. I mean, there is no velvet. This is hard gloves. And you've got to see the difference. This is not the benign politics of our earlier leaders. Manmohan Singh will be worried about his table manners. Modi will decide who comes to the table.
I mean, when you look at, for instance, one of the biggest spectacles that we saw post Narendra Modi coming into power, it was really his visit to the United States and the adulation he received there from the Indian diaspora. And it was really a spectacle that was shown live across channels, and it was the largest thing one has ever seen in terms of a Prime Minister visiting a foreign country. Do you think that was necessary or unnecessary? Shiv, I'd like your view on this one.
The message is clear. It's only you and I sitting back on our drawing room sofas who think he's a B-grade movie. Remember, B-grade movies sell better than art movies. We want an art movie from our leader. B-grade movies with cameo performances. What more can you ask? This is the new regime. This is brand Modi.
Let me come to you, Swami, on this one, on the Prime Minister travelling far and wide, and of course focusing on external relations, and hence within India and the Indian stakeholders giving him the title of the visiting India PM. Really,
a Prime Minister should not be somebody who is collecting frequent flyer miles, right? That's not the object of being a Prime Minister. There was a time when diplomats used to lay the entire ground for a foreign visit. And when at the diplomatic and bureaucratic level, all the agreements, everything had been agreed, then the Prime Minister would go over there for a handshake and a formal signing. That is not what's happening now. What's happening now is as though, a mere visit, your physical presence on foreign soil somehow changes foreign relations. That, to my mind, is an error. So Modi is getting lots of headlines. Some people think this makes him a good Prime Minister. I think this is a bad thing to be doing. I think he should be spending much more time in India, attending much more to things here.
Last question really to all the four panelists today. One piece of advice you would want to give Narendra Modi if he was hearing you right now?
Well, if you would hear me, I would say step down. But otherwise, I would say put on a hearing aid. There's a lot that Modi is not listening to. There's a lot that media is not covering. I think Narendra Modi needs a hearing aid.
The fact that you've created desire, you've created belief, you've created a whole set of followers, and now the point is a brand is not a promise. I mean, it is not a noun. It is a verb. It is what you do. What you do is who you are. And I think what the country is looking for from him is coherent action.
Still is all very well, but at the end of it all, you need a great big stake. So he needs to deliver economic growth at a much larger level. He needs to develop employment at a much larger level than he has managed to do in this first year.
Little more access to people.
On that note, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking time out and joining us right here on this special episode. With that, we're completely out of time. We hope you enjoyed the show. To take the time and drop us a line at brandequity@etnow.tv, or alternatively log on to our Facebook page, that's facebook.com/brandequity, to dip into our archives or give us feedback on this special show. You could do the same on Twitter @brandequitylive. I'll see you next week, same time, same place. Until then, keep it real.